press consisted of well-established newspaper-style publications, the oldest of which, Melody Maker, goes back all the way to 1926. But now a new family of magazines has emerged. Smash Hits, the first of them, now has a circulation which, according to the last official figures, well exceeds that of the New Musical Express, the most successful of the older papers. The new magazines are smart and glossy, they don't make your hands black, and in general they contain more pictures and fewer words. They may or may not be in direct competition with the likes of NME, but there have certainly been some bitter exchanges. NME's Paul Morley, for example, attacked The Face in particular. Reading Steve Taylor and a lot of his colleagues on The Face, which is disastrous considering their selling point as the final frontier, you would be totally put off pop music. These people are boring. Steve Taylor, you obviously wouldn't agree with that attack on you, but would you accept that in The Face the pictures are more important than the writing?
May have been true so far, because essentially we're a very young new magazine. We're coming into British publishing from an independent, interventional point of view. And we've had to establish ourselves. We've established ourselves on the basis that we picked out the visually important elements in the culture that we're dealing with. But I think we're moving on now to establishing a strong journalistic point of view to go with that. And that is, I mean, personally, my task for this year, my challenge for this year is to make the written content of The Face match up to the visuals. And
Because Neil Spencer, you're the editor of NME, and I've actually got a quote here from a piece by Ian Penman, when he said, I quote, "We are each of us amalgamated of an infinite variety of traces and arrange them into mythic shapes and sympathies, even if we never have to face a satiated public gaze." Now, I really don't know what that means, and although a lot of the stuff in NME isn't like that, you do sometimes, do you feel you have a tendency to overwrite things?
Well, I think there is a tendency to overwrite sometimes, but I think that's a good fault. I think it's better to have intelligence than asking someone to write down to an audience. I think that's an insult to readers.
You don't think that sometimes you tend to take it too far the other way and over-intellectualise?
Oh, I think there's a tendency to do that, but the readers are very sharp, and they pick us up.
Steve, do you see yourself as a rival for NME's customers?
no, I don't see it that way at all, no. I think our angle on the culture that we deal with is very, very different from the NME's. I think, in a way, we are trying to respond to changes in that culture. The fact that A, it's become much more visual, B, that it's much more varied. I think young people's energies go into a vast variety of things, not just music. That's what we try and reflect, the way people's energy goes into fashion, entrepreneurism, new technology, style, video, whatever.
For you, Neil, that lately we've seen more and more colour pictures on the cover of NME. Have you ever felt threatened by the new press that's come through? And is that why you've
Well,
gone
not
for
threatened, no, because what we do is very individual, and we have functions which I don't think
But you
the
have
glosses
actually
can.
lost a lot of readers since the advent of the new papers, according to...
Yes, but I don't think they're the reason why we have. I think there are other reasons. The fact that young people have got a lot less money in their pockets. The actual music scene is less vital now than it was a few years ago. I think those are the contributory factors to that. But certainly what NME has that the glossies don't have is a lot more news, because if the Slits break up or if Lynval Golding is attacked in a club, you read about that in NME. And I think I would like
But don't
NME...
you also read about, like Lynval Golding's incident was in the daily papers?
Yes, so you read 7 lines in the Daily Mirror, and you read 2/3 of a page in NME with a picture of him in hospital.
Steve?
Well, I think the NME reflects, of late, a kind of lame attempt to ape some of the features of The Face. If you look at the Christmas issue in particular, there's an essay on style in 1981, which is sort of gratuitously tacked on to what's actually been in the paper the rest of the year. There hasn't been a comprehensive coverage of that aspect of youth culture. Suddenly in the Christmas issue you get this whole essay. There are certain features of the NME that I think reflect a kind of paranoia about the inability of the format. It's not a failing of the people on the paper particularly, although I think it is that as well, but the inability of the format to respond to changes in rock culture, because and in the demands of people who read rock papers, because I don't think people want to read anymore.
What do you feel about this thing that the people on NME are good, but what they're doing is a bit passé?
Well, I think what people want from a music paper is stuff about music, which Steve has already said the face isn't too bothered about. So I do think it's important that we represent the music.
But
And
do
we
you
represent
actually
a
do that?
diversity of music, which I don't think you'd find in the face. If it wasn't this year's, if it wasn't this month's flavour, I don't think it would be in there. If it's something that's a bit uncomfortable, something that's not fashionable, not chic, I don't think you'd find it in there. And I think NME's got that diversity, that width of coverage of music.
Okay, Neil Spencer, Steve, thanks very much.
Thanks, Mike.
A couple of weeks ago, we spoke to a young